Let's start by sitting upright. The head is suspended from above. And releasing the body from the point of your head all the way down into the seat. So you're maintaining a nice balance between being upright and released. As you release the body, you'll find that your breath is gradually sinking deeper into the belly. And so that allows you to take a few deep, long, comfortable breaths. Filling the entire body with fresh air. Releasing a bit more into each out-breath. Gently smile with your lips and your eyes, releasing, softening the eyes and the forehead. And the attitude that you bring to the meditation practice, let it be guided by kindness, by compassion, And breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, releasing through your whole body. Let all the flesh melt. All the soft tissues become more and more soft. While maintaining the integrity of your posture, let the body be still. And with each out-breath, melting into the right shape. Giving up your resistances, your protective holding patterns in the body. With each out-breath, melting, softening a bit more. Especially you want to notice holding patterns around the forehead or inside of your brain, and release them on the out-breath. Or the holding patterns that exist in your heart, in your chest. Or the ones that exist in the belly. And each time when you let go of some of the unnecessary tension, notice how that's a little bit more nice, a little bit more comfortable. Appreciating those moments that feel good. Well, this is the first stage of the practice, releasing physical tension. Let your body open up, become soft. Finding comfort, openness, and pleasure in the body. And the second stage, we're releasing two parts of time, which is the future and the past. And we're releasing the thoughts about these states. So future thoughts or past thoughts. We're going to do that by placing our attention on something that is happening now. And what is happening now? Well, there is an experience of sound. There is an experience of feeling. Perhaps an experience of seeing. The experience of thinking. And maybe very rarely the experience of smelling or tasting. In other words, what you are experiencing right now is nothing but the senses. That's actually all we are experiencing. Just sense activity. Sound, sight, thought, smell, taste, or feeling. And there is a difference in the second stage as to how we experience it. We experience it aware that those things are there. There is an experience of smell, or taste, or feeling, or hearing. And there is a bunch of thoughts passing through. The difference is I'm not lost in those things. I know that they are happening right now. Presence essentially means knowing what is happening while it is happening. So that's the skill we train. Where is my attention right now, right this second? What am I paying attention to? That's the question. Is it sound, sight, feeling? Where is my attention right now? Whenever you find yourself getting lost in what happened previously or what is about to happen, release right there. Let go of that. Coming back to what actually is happening right now. Connecting the body and the mind. Experiencing feeling as just feeling, aliveness, energy. Experiencing sound as just sound, aliveness, energy. Experiencing thought as just thought, aliveness, energy. See if you can follow the movement of your attention, always knowing where it is right this second. How it jumps from sense to sense, naturally, without any effort. Even within the realm of just one sense. Now hearing the aircon, then the fountain, then a bird, then a distant car, then the bird again, aircon. Notice how naturally your attention moves around like that. Just keeping track. Where is it right now? Where is it right now? Where is it right now? Notice when it moves to another sense, the sense of feeling or thinking. As long as you know where your attention is, without being lost in it, you're present. Notice that if you're really present, it's really hard to conceptualize yourself as someone that is having a problem. In order to maintain that concept of yourself as being someone that has a lot of problems, you'd have to hold on to that concept and abandon presence. You'd have to think of yourself in the past. You'd have to think of yourself in the future. You'd have to create a sort of dream and then get lost in it. But when you're present, you're not dreaming, you're aware of dreams. You're aware of sound. You're aware of feeling. You're not lost in it. You're not a subject to it, enslaved by it. You're simply just here noticing there's a bunch of aliveness, bunch of energy in motion throughout this whole body. Within the world of your senses. In your own time, if you like, you can slowly come back. Open your eyes and gently stretch a little bit. So good morning, everyone. Nice to see all of you. So during the meditation practice, we work with one of the fundamental tools throughout all the stages, which is the tool of release, or the skill of release, letting go. And letting go always is a result of clearly seeing where and how you are burdening yourself in unnecessary ways, and clearly seeing through that. It's a proper understanding of suffering, really, and how you produce it. And when you see how you produce suffering for yourself by holding, clinging to ideas, concepts, physical tension, emotional tension, etc., then you naturally gravitate towards release. You naturally seek to let go of what it is that you have identified as burdening you, as making your life difficult, hard, unbearable, painful, etc. As long as you don't see these mechanics and processes by which you are burdening yourself, by which you are loading weight onto your body and mind, you can't let them go. So it's the case that for most people, we are somewhat aware that we are uncomfortable, and to the extent where that discomfort is creating a compulsion to move towards a solution to the problem. So we're all driven in our lives to find solutions to our problems. I always mention that again and again because it's very practical. If you look at your posture right now, you look at the way you are existing in your body, you will notice that you're moving quite a bit. You're moving your eyelids, you're moving by breathing, there's the heartbeat, and then there is scratching an itch, rearranging your clothes, stretching out parts of your body. There's all kinds of movements going on, right? Constantly. And all those movements do is just basically keep you from diving into a world of pain and death. So this movement keeps you alive. The heartbeat keeps you alive. Like, just imagine you stop blinking your eyes, as it would result in huge pain and then dry eyes and then problems with vision. Everything would degrade. So it's not only the case that we're constantly moving in our bodies, but we're also moving in our minds all the time, thinking about this, about that, sending our mind off into the future, thinking of further movements to improve life, to get out of misery, to make things more comfortable, bearable, happy, easeful, joyful. And so the mind goes out into what is called sensuality. We like to think of how to obtain sense objects that will give us relief and that will give us pleasure, happiness, joy. At the same time, we also contemplate and think a lot about those things that may take this joy and this relief away from us. This is worry, anxiety, fear. Trying to make sure that you will continuously experience good things in life. So that's the standard person. And these processes that are constantly active within our being, the process of physical motion and mental motion, they are driven by the intention, by the seeking of ease, of happiness, of joy, aliveness. And all these things that we are seeking are found in the end of suffering. And the end of suffering is found in the giving up of clinging, the giving up of holding. So in those 4 stages of the meditation practice, we give up different types of holding. And each time when you give up holding or clinging, the result is an increase of stillness, an increase of joy, happiness, aliveness, energy, health, etc. All the things that you actually want. So in the first stage, you let go of physical tension, starting with the coarse layers of your physical tension. Where are you habitually holding tension? That would be unnecessary to hold. So then you identify those areas where you're holding it, and then you bring release into those areas, softening through those areas, finding some space, openness. And that's nice. Eventually your body feels better and better as a result of that practice. The way to do it in the very beginning is simply breathing into the area that you feel is tense. And as you breathe out, finding some softness. Let the flesh, the muscles, the soft tissues melt. And you'll find that you can well melt those parts of your body. And that previously, before you actually even knew that you were tense, before you even knew that you were holding that tension, now it's very different. Now you suddenly realize, oh wow, there is tension, and oh wow, I'm holding it. I am producing it because I'm the one that constantly keeps the body in that shape. Subconsciously, Not consciously. You're not waking up in the morning and going like, I'm going to keep my shoulders tense for the whole day today. It's not the way it works. It's a subconscious process. What that means is that what once was conscious and has been repeated many, many times is now automated. So it's subconscious. You don't have to think about it anymore. Your body does it on your behalf. Because at some point in your life, obviously, you probably needed that tension for some reason. And then you cultivated it to such an extent where it is now automated. So your body takes away the burden of having to be consciously producing tension all the time. Like the body does it with driving a car. When you learn how to drive a car, in the beginning it is very conscious. You have to remember all those things. You have to put it all together nicely. But then eventually, it's totally unconscious. It's just a subconscious process of driving a car. You don't have to pay attention to it anymore at all. It just happens. Even like you would stop at red lights, even being totally engaged in a conversation. You just stop at the red light. And when it's green, you go again. And you're somehow making it from A to B without any accidents or crashes, because your body is intelligently maneuvering the whole thing for you while you are elsewhere in your thoughts or in a conversation or whatever. So in the very same way, the body adapts and it takes over trauma and tension, and it learns from your life experiences and how you react to them, and then it internalizes them and makes them automatic, eventually becoming a tendency, a habit, a character, a personality, who you are. And so who we are right now is a process of constantly repeating the same patterns. Same patterns of tension, the same patterns of holding in body and mind over and over again. And so in meditation practice, we gradually begin to disentangle that. And you can only disentangle it if you bring awareness into it. And as I said, for most people, they aren't even aware of how tense they are and how much they actually suffer from their tension. They don't even notice. We're so absent-minded most of the time that we're so out of touch with ourselves that we don't notice how much we suffer. We would only notice if miraculously you were suddenly stripped of all your distractions and you'd have to face yourself by force in a prison cell, let's say, where there is absolutely no entertainment device for you, where there is no distraction, where there is just four walls, a door, and you. And you can't escape from it. You can't escape from yourself anymore. Well, perhaps you could still escape and you would go into sleeping or into mad exercise, trying to build yourself up or something. You'd somehow try to keep yourself busy. Because just sitting there in silence, you'd go insane. Why? Because it's unbearable to face this whole mess that we are, while at the same time staying sane. It's almost impossible, unless you've had some training. You'll gradually be introduced to your power. You've gradually been empowered by actually the experience of sitting down, seeing the tension, being able to release it, being able to face it, then being able to release it. And seeing that you come out the other side with much more strength, much more light, and much more happiness. This is what it means if you take responsibility for yourself. You become sincere enough to look at yourself honestly and see who you really are, and see how you, yourself alone, is responsible for how you feel, how you think, how you act, and how you are messing up your life, or how are you disentangling the mess. That's your responsibility alone, no one else's. Once you see that clearly, that there is an end of the continuity of blaming and finger pointing and saying that I'm feeling miserable because of my past, I'm feeling miserable because of things that are to come, I'm feeling miserable because of politicians, the world, my neighbors, whatever. You can't do that anymore with a straight face, without losing self-respect. Because you clearly see that it's you that suffers, and you are suffering because you are holding. And you could let go if you were to just willing to confront the fact that you are holding. And you could stop doing that. And it would be easeful if you did. And it would be nice if you did. And you would feel good if you did. But our response to how we feel, all this tension that we are harboring, is usually very different. It's usually one of either fight or flight. It's like, how do you respond to your tension, right? You either want to just get rid of it, and so you lean against it, into it, you're butting in, or you're trying to escape it somehow, trying to run away from it, get out of the painful situation. Well, nowadays we do have plenty of ways of getting out of painful situation, getting away from yourself, right? It's pretty easy. I don't have to mention all the ways that you can distract yourself. And as you distract yourself, you're not solving the problem. You're only apparently solving the problem. But you are actually just shifting it around. And as you're shifting it around, and the problem is in that shadow, in that dark part where you're not seeing it for a little while, that's where it feeds. That's where it festers and grows and becomes worse. So we're not solving a problem by ignoring it, right? That should be standard knowledge, basic primary school knowledge. You can't solve a problem if you ignore it. You may feel good temporarily because you're ignoring your problems, but that doesn't solve it. Running away from our problems doesn't solve them. Fighting against them doesn't solve them either. The war on drugs, does it work? Well, surprise, surprise. If you fight drugs, what are you going to get? Well, you're going to get a massive underground movement. It's not the end of drugs. It's not that people suddenly go, oh, the government tells me I shouldn't do drugs. Well, how silly was I that I did drugs? I should stop my evil ways and just return to the light, or something like this. People don't do this. They take drugs for a reason, right? We take drugs for a reason. Why do we take drugs? Since millennia. Because we seek release from stress. That's the reason why people do it. Unless you are dealing with that, people will always take drugs. The same goes for everything else that we try to fight away. Let's fight terrorism. How does that work? Fighting terrorism, the war against terrorism, how's that working out? It actually is a major cause for more terrorism. Again, surprise, surprise. How about throwing bombs onto the villages of your enemy? Will that solve your problem with your enemy? Will that make your enemy suddenly go like, wow, I was a pretty evil guy. I should stop being evil. I should go back to the light and be nice from now on, because they've bombed all my villages, so now I finally see my mistakes. I should redeem myself. No one in their right mind would do that. You're bombing my family, you're not pacifying me, you're aggravating me. That should be like basic understanding. If you resist, it persists. Something like that, right? The saying goes like that. What you resist persists, or something like that. So if you're resisting your tension, if you're pushing against it, guess what? It'll persist. It's the very pushing against it that is tense. And it's that tension that feeds into your tension. This pure logic. You can't escape from it. I mean, you can, but after hearing things like this, how could you, and still have self-respect? So yeah. Understanding that release is basically what we're after. We go through these 4 stages of release. Now, if you release the body, you naturally become more present with your body. Why are you becoming more present? Because it's pleasant. It's nice. You don't have to run away because you're not in pain. The body actually feels good. So you want to dwell in it. You want to be in it. Now you want to take it a step deeper. I've already mentioned presence, which is the 2nd stage. Second stage is the release of time. You let go of time. And you all know the state of letting go of time. Remember any time in your life when you felt good? When you were truly happy? I don't know, watching a nice sunset, taking a walk through a beautiful forest. Moments in which you were just content. Just happy with the way things are. Did you then have any thoughts about your future or your past in that moment? None, right? They're just blown out of your mind. In fact, if you're really happy, you don't think of your future and you don't think of your past. The more unhappy you are, the more you think of your future and your past. Because it's the promised land, isn't it? The future is like, that's where I can find relief. I must get elsewhere because elsewhere is better than this. So the indicator of how much you suffer is how much you think of your future or your past. It's an indication of suffering and stress. It's not an indication of pleasure and joy and happiness. As I said, an indication of pleasure and joy and happiness is, and that should be all of our experience, the absence of thoughts of future and past. The absence of an experience of time. Have you ever noticed when you're really happy, time passes like nothing? 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours is like nothing. Think of an interesting movie. You can sit almost perfectly still in your armchair, enjoying that movie for 2 hours. And before you know it, it's over. It was an amazing experience. 2 hours passing like 10 minutes. Think of anything pleasurable, a good, nice dinner with good friends. And it's just over before you know it. You just sit down, it's 6 p.m. or something like that, and before you know it, it's 10, 11, or 12, midnight. Time just passed. Where did it all go? Well, you'd had a good time, you were enjoying yourself, so you didn't think of the future or the past in that moment. You were just right there. That's why people go rock climbing, that's why they dance, that's why they do bungee jumping, parachuting, and all that kind of stuff, because it pulls you out of time. And being pulled out of time is pleasurable, it's nice. And vice versa, it is nice and then you're pulled out of time. If it's nice, you're pulled out of time. And if you're pulled out of time, it's nice. As long as you have lingering time, like trying to get somewhere, trying to achieve something, you're producing time in your mind. As long as that's the case, you are suffering that. It's unpleasant. It's not nice. You're discontented. unhappy, not there yet, unsatisfied, seeking satisfaction, seeking contentment, trying. Well, yeah, that's the word, right? Trying. You're still trying. What are you trying? You're right here. It's all right here, now. So as soon as you let go of this perception of time, of future and past, you start to settle into the moment. And the first stage is a groundwork for that. In the first stage, you become comfortable in your own body, under your own skin. And due to that comfort, your mind just kind of doesn't want to go elsewhere. It doesn't want to distract itself because it feels really good being here. So in that way, stage 1 leads into stage 2. Naturally. How do you get from stage 1 to stage 2? Well, deepen stage 1. The more you're deepening it, the more you are coming into stage 2 naturally, without even noticing it. It's not a conscious transition, like, okay, now I did my stage 1 work, let's go over to stage 2 now, something like that. Like, I think I spent about 10 breaths in stage 1 now, let's go over to stage. Like, if you're practicing like that, you're missing the point, really. Stage 1 should become so damn comfortable that you don't want to be elsewhere. You're not looking forward to stage 2. You're not trying to get there anymore. You've lost all interest in stage 2. That's when you arrive in stage 2. You've already arrived. Ah, nice. It's nice here. I love it. Feels so good. Well, you're in stage 2. You don't even know it. You're super present. You've no interest in what's next. No interest in what happened previously. You're just fascinated by life, connected to it, as it's happening, without many concepts about it either. It's just a fascinating unfolding of craziness, of an experience that is totally insane, actually. Like, imagine you're on this world, in this universe, conscious, in a body with 2 arms and 2 legs, sitting, and you're experiencing stuff. Doesn't that blow your mind enough to make you present, to pay attention to life, to the actual experience of it, and not your story about it? Who cares about your life stories? It's boring. Life is where it's at. That's what's interesting. Like, your past is dead. It's dead. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It doesn't do anything. Let it go. And your future is equally dead. It doesn't exist. It is unborn. It's not born. Why deal with things that don't exist at all? When dealing with what exists is where your power is at. If you want to do anything to life, you have to connect with it, and that's where you're doing it. It's like driving a car. You cannot steer to the left 10 meters ago. Can you? You can't go back in your car and then steer to the left. It doesn't work that way. But you can steer left or right now. This moment you can steer. And in dependence on how you're steering right now, that's the direction you take. Isn't that enough power? Do you actually have to know what happens in 200 meters? Well, you can't know it. It's irrelevant. But the only thing you need to know is that you can steer now, left and right. Let's say left is into tension and right is towards release. So unless you are present, you haven't even begun to live. You haven't even started. You're living a fiction. You're living a story in your head. You're not actually living. Perhaps that's the reason why some of the great forest teachers in Thailand here, they had this saying, it's like, mindfulness is life. Those who are heedless are as if already dead. If you have no mindfulness, if you're not here, if you're not present, you're dead already. You're a walking story, a walking corpse, a zombie. The body is here, but the mind's gone. It's dreaming of other stuff. You're totally disabled by that. You're not actually living a life. Perhaps to the extent, I love how Eckhart Tolle said that one time, perhaps to the extent that you're just not bumping into things. That's the extent that we live our lives these days. We are conscious enough so we're not bumping into things. I kind of like that. It's a fun way to say it. Fun way to point it out, I mean. Like, look at your own life, right? Look, how do you get up in the morning? What do you do? How do you take a shower? Where's your mind in the shower? Where's your mind? And if you have breakfast, where's your mind when you're watching a movie? Where's your mind when you're going about your day-to-day stuff? I guarantee you, most of the time, it's not here. It's not home. Someone were to knock on your head, there's no one home. No one there. So what you want to do in the beginning, of course, is really fill your body with mind. Connect those two. Bring them together. That's what's healthy. That's what's right. It's right and healthy in terms of it gets you what you actually want. It gets you to the experience of aliveness, joy, happiness, and the absence of problems and suffering. It's right there. Your problems stop when you think of your problems. It should be kind of obvious. At least they stop for most of the time, right? If you don't think of them. You don't keep them, hold them alive in your body and your mind. They end right there. They end as you release, as you let go. At least a large portion of it. A really good chunk. And then happiness is just quite natural. Happiness is, very nature of life is happy. It wants to expand, it wants to grow. Through you. Through everything. All right.